So we have the countdown timer going on here. When it hits an hour, it's going to make a noise this time around. So I'll know when that happens, and we'll go ahead and we'll take a break. That's basically like my oxygen level. Like that's how long I think my patience can last. So when that timer goes off, if I miss it, please tell me, because this is for our sanity. So let's take a deep breath and let's dive into the wide world of Twitch. Let's see. We were yesterday doing Dylan's podcast, so that Dylan Burns. Speaking of leakers, let's let's talk about Dylan Burns here. This is on BS notifications. It's not even leaking anything. Please pick up where we left off. Please, please, please. Please, 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 please. Oh, it might. We might have some luck here. It won't let me pause. No, bloody hell. And I can't hear it either. It did this last time too. Oh, you know what it is? They said that they muted parts of the video because of audio stuff. So maybe that's what this is. Maybe there was some music in here. Let's continue playing. Yeah, that's what's going on here. Oh, thanks. I think this is the wrong video. Yeah, me too. Okay, so... Oh, Dylan Burns and Mr. Geek. Just post this shit to YouTube. It doesn't require you to freak. You don't need to edit these videos at all. Just post them with an end card and then I'll be enthralled. I can't even go back to his channel. Look at how lagged out Twitch is. Come on now. Oh, it paused. Okay, can we go back to Dylan's channel here? Can we go back to his channel? Videos.
After taxes, Hassan gets a medium wage.
Still lying.
Where is that
into his
coming
bank
from?
account, just from Twitch.
Okay. I was like, dang, I'm hearing the ghost of Destiny's past talking to me. What's going on? So it wasn't the video that, what's with the shaky camera? The laptop is set up, oh, let me move my mask. The laptop is set up on top of a lint screen box or a dryer sheet box on a table that's legs are, well, there you see them. They're not really legs. See, they're a collapsible member here. So, and look at how thin it is. Do you see that corner over there? Look what happens when I push. Oh, well, you can't quite tell it out, but the whole thing is very bendy. We got a bendy member. We've got a bendy member, boys. We got to go to the hospital for that one. Baller. This is awesome. Yeah, we're dedicated. So every time I touch the desk, it wobbles. So I'm going to try not to touch the desk. Down by the river. Damn right, son. We're going to be brother billing it. If Milk Tea Leninism or Dylan reaches out for advice on that conversation, I'd be happy to. So if you guys want to reach out to either of them and tell them that, you can. But my new rule is that I don't fuck with these people unless they ask for it, because it takes me a lot of time to prep for these conversations. And if on top of that we have to have an argument about it, I don't want to waste my time with you. But if you want help and improvement and you go in knowing that already, then that's a different situation. This isn't the right thing either. Wait, hold on. Is that Catherine there in the bottom right? Because I saw Pseudocia. No, this isn't the right thing, guys. Come on. What's the right video? I need a link. Chat, please. All three of you. Link me. Link me. Wah. Wah, wah, wah. This isn't the right video, Fuck, Dylan, just post your shit. Oh, just post it to YouTube, dude. I'll take Geek's job. I'll just post the hippy dippies. Is that Rem with a ball cap? What is going on? What is going on? I mean, we can skip around. Now I'm not getting my preview bubble for some reason. Continue sub? I can't, Dylan. Dylan, you need to run your YouTube, my dude. You need to post your shit so that I could review it. This is so crazy. Oh, Dylan, you're robbing me of content. What is this nonsense? Oh, God, for the love of all that is mighty and holy, please post this on YouTube. Yeah, we can't. It's too hard. We're not doing it. I'm at a 60, and we're only 47. We're only at 47 minutes on that timer. So I like his hair. Is this the content you guys came here for? This is my react, Andy.
Oh shit! Hey!
Oh no! Oh shit! That went 0 to a. Whoa! No, that's not smart at all. Is he doing it for the vine, dude? What the fuck? Ooh. Jesus Christ.
Oh my god!
It's a lot of booty.
Keep going!
Is she a Twitch streamer? Oh shit! Live now. Ah shit. React Andy Scheitze. Scheitze? Scheitze! Exclamation point.
I'll let Jani Lane himself take the story from here. This is from an interview he did some years later with VH1. This is a clip I have used in class many times to help students identify a great quote, and here it comes.
It is.
And all of a sudden, the album's called Cherry Pie, the record's called Cherry Pie, I'm doing cherry pie eating contests, the single's Cherry Pie, right? If I'm lying, I'm dying. And my legacy's cherry pie. Everything about me is cherry pie. I'm a cherry pie guy. I could shoot myself in the head for writing that song.
If you're a creator of any kind, take a second and think now if you've ever had a hit, even on a very minor scale. Just something that you made that seemed to get a lot more audience than most of your other stuff. Okay, now think about that thing that hit and think about whether it was the thing that you expected or even wanted to hit.
So, to kind of interject here, I'll finish eating. To kind of interject here and answer that question, like, this is something that I've kept in mind from the very beginning, and I would feel comfortable with, like, most, if not all of my talks, like, taking off in some kind of way, like what he's describing here. And so I think he's wording what I'm trying to word to a lot of the Twitch community, but he's doing it for different kinds of consequences. So, like, my thing is, you don't know how that stuff's gonna, how its ripples are gonna affect other people. You only know that it's not a good thing at the moment that you sent it, and that alone should be enough, whatever. He's kind of approaching it from the angle of, like, you don't know what's going to be the thing you become famous for, because those people are interested in fame, and that's why they're doing it anyways. And the way that he makes that more clear, at least to me personally, is through the dog in the mail truck analogy, that, like, ultimately, when you're doing these things online, you're kind of, if not being intentional about it, you're running the risk of eventually catching that truck, eventually something catching traction and blowing up, because you're putting all that out there in the public for everybody forever. And so, especially for content creators, your purpose is kind of like to make that entertaining and whatever. And your purpose in some regard is like for that to blow up. Like, that's a good thing for you. So be prepared for any shot that you take at that to be the thing that catches. I think that this can be like a cautionary tale for people. Like, do you want to be the Twitch streamer who said the mean thing on Twitter? Like, and I think that this is to a lesser extent happened or happening to lots of people. For me personally, like, obviously the talk with Destiny is like a really big talk. And you know, I was at least somewhat consciously aware of that going into it. So I approached it very carefully, perhaps even more carefully than I have done any of my conversations with anybody else. You know, so, you know, you should prepare for that. You should be ready for that. And framing it as like, this may be the thing that you go down in history for, kind of puts that pressure on you to be responsible about it. It's a different approach than I would normally take, but I thought it was interesting.
I'm the guy who seasons his X instead of his Y. It me. And you know what? I'm gonna play that hit for you anytime. I'm gonna play it all night long because I remember the cautionary tale of Jani Lane. R.I.P. Jani. He was good. All right, we'll get back to food on Thursday. Risotto time.
Like, what a well put
If you're gonna
together
blow up
and well synthesized video. Given his academic and like professional background, that shouldn't be surprising. But like, what a well put together and well said piece, especially this bit towards the end where he's like, you know, you basically have two options. Like, you can resent that thing or you can let it become a part of you and embrace it. And that's like a normal thing to say, but the way that he sells it afterwards by being like, by constantly tying this back to him and being like, you know, like, yeah, I'll be the guy that goes out there and does this every single night and whatever. And like, I'm happy that like that gave happiness to so many people. And like this focus on the positive side, he sells it really, really well. And it contrasts really well to the story that he gave beforehand, you know, and that was the whole point of it. But I think like, I don't know, it was really well spoken in the end. I really liked this. I'm going to give it another like here. I guess he normally does the cooking stuff, but if you ever want to check this guy out, obviously he's well spoken, because this was a really interesting video. We're going to do this bigly. So if on one side of things, wow, that's way too bright. That's a yellow. Okay, so on one side of things, we have the BLM stuff, right? And under the umbrella of the BLM stuff, we have the Campaign 0. And we have the other thing. What's the other thing? 8 Can't Wait. 8 Can't Wait. Okay. And I keep these two separate. I think the Campaign 0 is the one that I like more, and I think the 8 Can't Wait is a little redundant. And we'll kind of see why that might be from the perspective of a police officer. Okay. Now,
Hi everyone, Donut here. I think
we
want to
keep.
Now
Hold on. Hold
Oh,
on. We want to keep in mind biases here. So to give you background on this feller, he is an ex-police officer. Now he does all this YouTube stuff, and a good part of his content is analyzing shootings and stuff, or excessive use of force situations, and giving a police perspective on some of that stuff. He does call out officers when they're being crazy. I think his threshold for that is a lot higher than I think what the normal person's would be, but I think that's because he has the unique perspective of having been a police officer, and I think that that's valuable. Now, you may not always agree with his takes on stuff, but I think for the most part he's pretty based. Like, I can guess where he's going with stuff generally.
We are going to talk about the hashtag 8Can'tWait, and we are also going to talk about defunding the police. One of the dumbest fucking things you could ever do, ever. I've been talking about how defunding the police is the dumbest thing you could ever do for a couple of years now, and I guess I should just go over it right now because it's trending. Also, the mayor of Los Angeles has already taken $150 million worth of funding from the LAPD. Boy, that's going to work out for.
So again, he's going to develop more on why that's his perspective, but I think you guys, I know you follow lefties. I know you follow a lot of lefties. And so maybe through this React Andy corner, I can slip in some of the voices that I feel like adequately represent why some people may come to different conclusions, right? Like, remember how we had a whole video on Biden and talking about how, like, his stutter and trying to suppress that stutter was actually like being misinterpreted as like dementia and all this other stuff. And that actually, like, you should be somewhat sympathetic to the stutter thing, because that affects a lot of people, and it's irritating to see ignorance like that. And I think there's a lot of fair arguments for why people think that we shouldn't defund the police, and I think one of the main ones is what he gives here, which is to summarize, it's basically like, well, I actually think that fixing the police should be done with training or like getting officers with higher education. And to do that, you're going to need to pay them more, or you're going to need to pay more for like training and stuff. Now, I understand that the immediate counter argument that I think works to that is something along the lines of like, no, you guys are like misallocating your budget and you're spending it on stuff that you probably shouldn't. And that actually you have a surplus of funds that you could easily divert to training. And instead you're choosing to spend that money on other things. So what we're going to do is we're going to cash strap you, and you're going to have to figure out how to make things work with less. I still think that that's like not exactly a great counter, and I'm partial to what he's saying here, but I also understand defunding them because like they don't need to cover all this stuff that they're covering, and whatever money is cut away from them should probably immediately be spent on other different departments to handle some of the things that we're not comfortable with police doing, or going into initiatives to better educate police. That's not like funding that's under control of the police. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of different ways to skin this animal, and so I just wished that we had more agreement on the left so we could talk about this more, but nobody is interested in talking about reform. Everybody wants to be dramatic and talk about LARPers and anarchists and like random bullshit that I don't think is nearly as important as like actually discussing reforms and stuff. But I'm weird. That's my opinion. Let's go ahead and hear this dude out.
We would get our defensive tactics recalls every few months as a police officer during in-service training, but it was the same stupid shit that they taught us in the academy. They didn't teach us how to fight. And guess what a person who doesn't know how to fight automatically goes to? Their gun. That or less than lethal, and then they eventually go to the gun because they suck with those things too. A trained police officer who is confident in their abilities to control another human being will not shoot people as much as a police officer who has no idea what they're doing.
So this is an interesting perspective that I don't know if you guys have ever personally been exposed to necessarily. So what he's saying here is that right now, presently, the hand-to-hand or close quarter, whatever, the kind of like getting into a fight with somebody, the police don't have nearly enough training there. And so what's going to happen when you're attacked or when you're under threat of attack and you don't feel confident in your ability to handle somebody without a weapon, that creates a situation where you're going to go for that weapon, because for you, that situation and the odds of it going in your favor are not very good, right? That's my extra spin I'm putting on it. But basically he's saying if they're not trained and they're not confident in that, those are the people that go for their guns. So he's starting to paint a picture here where it's like, well, right now we receive training and it's woefully inadequate. And it's the people who are trained in that stuff because of seeking it out personally that are more prepared not to use their weapon than those that do. And those that do typically are the people that wouldn't feel comfortable engaging with that person physically. This is something I agree with a lot. And while I don't like to point to this country's like justice system because I think it's really fucked up, the prison guards in Japan and I think also in Thailand are required to have like martial arts training and stuff like that.
Ça m'a toujours impressionné, c'est de voir qu'il y avait un gardien pour 100 détenus. Alors qu'à l'intérieur, ce sont les Yakuza, les hommes les plus dangereux, la mafia japonaise.
Pour les outils, on vérifie tout. Et le système d'emprunt fonctionne très bien. Et donc, personnellement, je ne me suis jamais senti menacé ici. Comme vous l'avez vu tout à l'heure, il y a ici beaucoup d'outils dangereux qui pourraient servir d'armes. Mais ici, c'est la confiance qui prime. Je fais confiance aux prisonniers et eux me font confiance en retour.
La seule façon de s'évader à l'intérieur de cette prison, étant donné qu'on va passer 8 heures sur son travail, c'est de bosser, de ne pas réfléchir. Personne n'est armé, il y a juste des bâtons. C'est-à-dire que bon, tous les gardiens sont au minimum ceinture noire de kendo ou d'aïkido, tout le monde maîtrise les arts martiaux dans cette prison. Mais il n'y a pas d'armes, non, il n'y a pas de pistolet, il y a juste des matraques.
Now, I know that might sound like a weebish example, but I do think that that's something actually other police departments would probably benefit from, at least like grappling stuff, because once you're onto the ground, your gun isn't nearly as like effective as you would want it to be anyways. And so like there's a lot of cop videos of shootings where you see it, there's like a skirmish on the ground and like that officer's not able to use that weapon, and so they need help. And I think, like he's saying, there is the hidden benefit to that of confidence, instilling confidence in the officers. Like most people out on the street don't know how to fight. So when you know how to fight, like obviously you're avoiding getting in fights because they're crazy. But you can at least feel confident, especially if that's part of your job. And he's saying they don't receive that right now, so that could be a big factor.
Ban chokeholds and strangleholds. Those actually are banned at a lot of agencies across the United States. Personal story, if you're familiar with any kind of hold around the neck, you know there's a carotid choke where you cut off the blood going to the brain and people pass out. It's used in jiu-jitsu and martial arts all the time. There's a right way to do it, but then there's an air choke where you actually cut off oxygen. Carotid choke actually saved my life one time. Had a guy who had been snorting meth for 3 days straight. He was on a bender. He went to Walmart. He tried to steal some batteries to make some more shake and bake meth. We approach him. We start fighting him. He goes onto his stomach, puts his hands in his pockets. I'm on his back. Another officer's to the right of me, and another officer's to the left of me. He's rifling around in his pockets. Won't get his hands out. We didn't carry tasers. So my partner to the left of me, who has trained in jiu-jitsu, puts the guy in a rear naked choke, cuts off the carotid arteries, and the guy turkey necks and passes out. But, you know, as you all know, if you train this type of thing, people will always wake up a few seconds later. Now, if my partner would have held his arm on his...
Okay, you may not agree with that, right? And I wouldn't blame you. But you have to keep in mind that the blood one is different than the air one. And the blood one, often, you're passing out because you're not getting oxygenated blood. Your heart is still pumping and everything is still going. It's just you're cutting off flow to the brain. And once you let it go, that oxygenated air flows back in. Now, you could argue that, like, somebody who is taking a lot of meth and stuff and you're doing that, like, obviously that's not ideal. But if you've ever dealt with people that do drugs and fucking flip out on drugs, you would also be sympathetic to their situation there. Like, I don't know. To give you some background, I used to work as a security guard, and I dealt with a lot of homeless people. And when they're on stuff and they're getting crazy, or when anybody's on stuff and they're getting crazy, like, if you haven't experienced that, I don't know. Yeah, so let's continue here.
Neck and you know, choked him to death, that would be a bad thing. We cuff the guy, he starts to wake up, we reach in his pocket, and he's got a pocket knife about 7 or 8 inches long in there that he was unfolding. Excited delirium guy high on meth was about to stab all 3 of us. Guess what? The proper chokehold saved us. I'm not saying it's right in every situation, but there's some situations where if you have the proper training and the proper funding, that it can actually work. Require de-escalation. Officers already do de-escalation thousands of times a day across the United States, but guess what? De-escalation doesn't make the news. Maybe some agencies need...
So... And giving my own version of this, like, require de-escalation, all of them get de-escalation training. That's, like, a common part of what they're all taught. But, like, the thing is, it's not adequate, right? Like, it's not working necessarily. And what he's saying is, like, being somebody on the force, there are other things that'll probably produce the outcomes you're looking for better than this will. Like maybe de-escalation training is going to work better when the officers are confident in their ability to handle a situation, right? Like de-escalation goes both ways. Like if the officer escalates and gets crazy because they're not prepared to like handle that situation, or their life is honestly on the line because they are not confident and not able to like handle people in fights and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, you know?
More de-escalation training. But I haven't...
Another thing he touched upon that was interesting with the martial arts training is that you get an idea for like how the body works and what you do to other people and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable and what stuff feels like and like all of that. So if you train in martial arts, or you get martial arts training through your time at the police academy, or through your time training for the police department, then you kind of have a better intuitive understanding for the human body as well. So things like that, putting the knee on the neck for forever and a half, that would instinctually feel a lot worse if you were a martial arts person. Like, if it came up in the court case that that dude that did that was a martial arts person, I would have like a lot more to say about him, you know, compared to like a normie. And so, yeah, I definitely do think that like the martial arts training can help them gauge the way they're behaving or the physical things they're doing with people. So that's like another hidden benefit of that. Again, I see a lot of positives in the way he's explaining stuff.
Number 5, duty to intervene. I agree with this. Officers do have a duty to intervene, but sometimes they don't, and that's bullshit. I've been told to step back from someone who I was getting heated with and take a little walk. I've also told other officers, hey, chill out, it's cool. But yes, if your partner has his knee on a man's neck for 8 minutes, you should intervene. I believe that police can do better in this aspect. I agree with that one. Number 6.
There you go. See, that's how you know he's not crazy, is because it gives you some concession. So duty to intervene, I would definitely agree with as well, that officers should have a duty to intervene with each other. Now, what he's not necessarily touching upon here that a lot of people are mentioning, both police officers and people outside of the force, would be this kind of like blue family that's going on where police are protecting other police, and there's threats against your life for speaking out about stuff. That's worrisome to a lot of people, and I would have liked if he would have touched upon it there. But at least giving us concession on that and admitting that there needs to be some change in that regard, I think that's really good, and I would agree with him there.
Ban shooting at moving vehicles. I don't agree with this completely. It's just like every single thing we've talked about so far in this video, and every single thing I talk about in all my videos, it's a situational thing. Sometimes it is absolutely necessary given exigent circumstances to shoot at a moving vehicle. If someone's coming at me with a 3,000-pound bullet, I'm going to shoot them. And we've seen it before, and I agree it's wrong, and nonviolence...
I like that. If someone's coming at me with a 3,000-pound bullet, I'm going to shoot them. That's interesting. Yeah, and again, he has a cop brain, guys. He's gone through these experiences as a police officer, and so the experiences that he jumps to are readily available in his mind, but they're not necessarily in yours. And that's why the perspective thing is really important to keep in mind, because as a police officer, he has experiences in life that he's readily able to access, and that can help temper your opinions about what the police should be doing. Like, listening to the police about their experiences should help to inform you on how you should implement reforms. Like, they're important to hear from. So, like, shutting them down because you think they're all bad or they're all corrupt or whatever is not going to be helpful to your cause, because you have to understand their day-to-day situation to figure out how you're even going to change that, right? You have to understand what that problem looks like in order to like fix it. And part of that is understanding like, what is it like day to day for a beat cop? Like, what are the problems that you guys are facing? Why are you shooting people? Like, why do things devolve into this? Why aren't you stepping in? Like, answers to these questions are only going to come from the police.
Good idea. It's almost as if we haven't had a use of force continuum for a couple decades now. That exists. It's out there, and it's taught to every single police officer in the United States, and has been for a long time. And our final one, number 8, require all force to be...
Okay, so he says that. Let's go ahead and check that. Use of force continuum, police. Force continuum. Level 1, officer presence. Level 2, verbal commands. The mere presence of an officer in uniform or in a marked police unit is often enough to stop a crime in progress or prevent most situations from escalating. Used in combination with the visible presence, the use of the voice can usually achieve the desired results. When you say stop, don't move, be quiet, listen to me, let me see your ID, or you're under arrest, voice commands in conjunction with your mere presence will almost always resolve the situation. Level 3, empty hand control. Certain situations will arise where words alone will not reduce the aggression. This is the time police officers will need to get involved physically. This is a level of... Okay, so the jump from here to here, I think people have problems with, right? Like when you start like, hey, get out of the car. And it's like, whoa, why the fuck are you kicking me out of my car? Get out of the fucking car. And then you're like reaching in and grabbing shit. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So we jumped from level 2 to level 3 really quick. How long do we spend on level 2 before we jump to empty hand control? Like, how long do we move from verbal commands and agency for the other party, and then when do we lose agency? At what point do you start putting your hands on people and using the force that you're legally allowed to use, right? That the jump from here to here is kind of troublesome sometimes, and I could see this being a problem. Certain situations will, okay, this is the time police officers will need to get involved physically. This is a level of control employed by police officers minus the aid of equipment or weapons. There are two subcategories called soft empty hand techniques and hard empty hand techniques. Minimal force would involve the use of bare hands to guide, hold, and restrain. Use of force includes kicks, punches, or other striking techniques such as the brachial stun or other strikes to key motor points that have a moderate chance of injury. What is das? What is das? Is this the fucking judo chop? It is the judo chop, bruh. Judo chop. No, my timer. We've reached the end, boys. We gotta surface. We gotta surface. We're all done here. It's too much. We've gone too deep. No more React Andy stuff, but I will look up one more video. That's what it is, dude. It's the judo chop. Oh, we're gonna have to skip this because he gets.
Watch out!
I only came for the judo chop. Oh, is this gonna be TOS? I can't remember. we only came for the judo chop. Oh my god. Okay. Yeesh. You're trying to save up to move out? Not necessarily move out, but move on, more like it. Level 4 pepper spray, baton, and taser. Oh, okay, they're all on the same level. Interesting. When the suspect is violent or threatening, more extreme but non-deadly measures must be used to bring the suspect under control. Before moving to this level of force, it is assumed that less physical measures have already been tried. Pepper spray results in considerable tearing of the eyes, as well as temporary paralysis of the larynx, which causes subjects to lose their breath. Interesting. Typical baton is a round stick of various lengths and is made of hardwood, aluminum, or plastic composite materials. A blow with a baton can immobilize a combative person, allowing officers to effect an arrest. Of all the options available at this level, the taser, in my opinion, is the most effective. Well, you're clearly dumb. Clearly dumb. Destiny and everybody knows that tasers suck. Less lethal. This is newer, acceptable, and effective level of force that numerous... okay. Yeah, the LAPD used this in a really good way. I think we did a React Andy video on that. If not, I went through it with my family for sure. Level 6, deadly force. If a police peace officer has probable cause to believe that a suspect poses a significant threat of death or serious physical injury to the... Here's the problema, folks, is where we draw this line is sort of arbitrary, right? So if you're behind the wheel of a car and you're not following instructions, you are all of a sudden... Like, let's say I walk up to your car, right? And I'm like, hey, officer presence, I'm there. I knock on your window. We move on to verbal commands. Hey, buddy, can you go ahead and roll your window down for me? All right. You know what you were doing? And you're like, whatever. You're getting all antsy, And I'm like, can I see your license and registration? And you're like, I don't have a license. Like, oh, okay. Can you go ahead and step out of the vehicle for me? And you're not moving for your seatbelt. You're asking too many questions. And I reach my hand on the other side and I open your lock door. Okay? And I've brushed you with my hand where I'm starting to grab your wrist. We're in empty hand control. And If you then immediately hit the accelerator and you put it in a first gear and you start driving as I'm trying to get into your car, we've all of a sudden jumped all of these levels and we're at deadly force because now you're not listening to orders and you're driving a car around you could kill me.
With a 3,000 I'm going to shoot them.
Or if I'm reaching into your fucking car and you drag me, you most certainly are here. You're at this point, right? And then we, of course, would want to refer to that part of the 8 can't wait where you're saying, don't shoot at the moving car, whatever, right? You shouldn't be shooting at it as it's going away. But you've all of a sudden got yourself level 6 here. So I don't know. There are problems with this. And if they're not enforced all the time, then, you know, whatever. And the lines between these are blurred or unclear enough that like we could easily argue our way through the entire thing. Like if I wanted to reinterpret that same thing, I could say I showed up, I was officer presence when I pulled them over and walked up, I did verbal commands, I tried empty hand control before I was able to move to a level 4. He ran away with the vehicle. I didn't actually increase my level 3 until he started going through traffic and he put at risk the lives of other people, and that's what gave me my deadly force, because he was driving erratically, he ran a red light, he could kill people, so at that point he kind of lost his life. Right, at that point he hit level 6. So we can argue that stuff till the cows come home, which is why I don't even know if this is necessarily super useful for us as it currently is set up. I don't know. Let's just finish this video.
Reported. Forced to be reported. Like a use of force report that every police agency does? Oh, wait, they have these other things too. They're called reports. That's a crazy idea right there.
So again, this shows like a misunderstanding for how police work, that like you request that there's a report done for every single time you use force. Like those things are reported. Like that's a silly thing to ask for. And it doesn't necessarily give you what you're looking for either, because if police are filling out those reports, very often they don't tell the truth on those. And that's not necessarily like a problem that they get in trouble for all the time. And those aren't audited in any like significant way. So like, I don't know, there are other ways that you could have pushed that rather than this report thing, which is a bit cringy.
It's good to be back. We got a riot review coming up. I just have to edit it. Made that one with Mr. Angry Cops, who can do police content now.
Okay, so yeah, this is a Donut Operator on YouTube. I don't agree with everything he says, but I think understanding his perspective on things like this is helpful. He's an ex-police officer, and I think if we want to really reform the police, we have to understand where they're coming from on stuff. Because we have to understand what the problems are. And if we're offering solutions, being receptive to their criticism about that might help us to improve those solutions, right? Because the thing is, if your solutions are indigestible to the cops, or they're telling you that that's not going to work, like it may be in your best interest to like pay attention to that and figure out why that is, and like be willing to change your ideas so that you can accomplish your goal here and like actually create lasting change. I understand that you want us to take this guy seriously, but he's himself arguing against a straw man of the liberal position, so I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. Is like, he's attacking a straw man of the liberal position. Like, no, he's taking the 8 can't wait thing, and he's talking about why those specific things don't work. And like, what we're taking out of that is not these like more like sweeping criticisms that he has. What we're trying to take from that video are his responses to some of those policy changes, because what that does is it gives us extra information for other arguments. So if he tells us like, actually with the chokeholds, like that can be the most effective way of handling certain situations short of like using lethal. Like in that situation that he was talking about before, if that guy would have gotten the knife, remember from the force continuum, we would have moved immediately to deadly force. Like we would have maybe had the tasers and stuff, but the moment this methed out dude attacks them, he jumps to that level 6 and he's going to be met with deadly force. So you have to, you know, that's what I'm looking at from the video that he creates, because that's the kind of insights that I want to have to bring into conversations about broader reform. So that's what we're looking for there. We'll give you like a sneak teaser. If you haven't heard these two interact with each other, I fucking love the way that like Destiny and Alex like bounce off of each other with stuff. They're both really quick-witted and like very strong-willed, and it's cool to see. Let's put this at 2 so you can appreciate like how quickly this moves.
All right, play the poker site. Hold on. I gave you the looks. I need to do it for you.
Well, Destiny, now that you're so impressive at these board games, like, wow, you're such a god gamer. You want to put some stakes on the line for poker? Or is that not something you're comfortable with, given your gambling addiction in the past?
You know, my gambling addiction is too extreme, so I'm gonna not put anything on the line right now. Okay, is that okay?
I don't know. Like, have you ever played poker without anything on the line? How about if I beat you? Well, I guess you're gonna be too chicken to agree to something.
Yeah, right now.
So notice how right there we have the gambling addiction thing, which is going to come up throughout the entire conversation. And she was able to connect a new phrase that she was saying to that old phrase. And the way of creating organic comedy for people that are not good at comedy that I want to talk about in my video, where I'll take a bunch of clips from this, is picking a few themes of the conversation that you want to talk about and then constantly referring back to those throughout in new and unique ways that fit into the conversation is how you can come off as witty and stuff. So all you need are like 4 or 5 details about somebody or about the situation that you want to keep referring back to and finding new and unique ways of tying those into the conversation. God, they're really, really good at bouncing back and forth. And so like this would be a good video to explain that. And I probably will do that.
If I beat you, you have to tweet, I'm sorry, I was wrong about everything at Hassan Abi.
You have no idea. You have no idea how much you would have to stake to even make this remotely worth it. Okay, I don't know if you have anything you could offer me that would make that tweet worth it. Nice try though. Hold on.
I know you're banned on Twitter. You could just make a new account.
Yeah, could I?
I mean, like it doesn't even matter. You get banned from like basically every platform you're on.
True. Yeah, I've still been here on Twitch for like 10 years.
Yeah, for now, we'll see what happens.
You're gonna feel real bad if I get banned tomorrow. Or maybe you won't actually. Maybe this is funny to you. I don't know. Guys, is there a way I can make this heads up so that when you guys see the link, everybody doesn't fucking join?
That's a good question. Maybe just send it to me first.
Yeah, but if people see the URL, it's gonna get weird.
Can you just hide the URL? You know how to do that. It's not that
I mean, I can, but I don't know if you can handle that. Can you handle
I'm
that?
gonna teach you how to crop out the URL. You've been streaming for 9 years and you don't know how to hide a URL. Destiny, what's going on?
You see how like she does stuff like that, like in response to being banned off of every platform. Destiny says that well, I've been on Twitch 10 years now, and then she's like, well, I guess we'll wait and see on that. And then he's trying to belittle her about being new to the streaming world, about hiding links and stuff. And then she's like, oh, actually, do you need my help with that? Do you need my help on how to figure this out? Like at this point, it's been 9 years you've been doing this. Like that 9 years reference back to the 10 years thing he mentioned about Twitch, stuff like that, being able to reference back to that very quickly and work in that way makes witty comedy effective.
I'm worried about you. Go.
You stay in your comfort zone.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Okay. Good thing you have less URLs and less social medias you have to deal with. Don't worry, you'll just keep getting banned one by one. It'll be fine. All right, so we're not playing for anything here.
I just want to feel like a game, okay? We can play for 10 gifted subs, right? If that's what you want to do. $50, okay?
Okay, 10 gifted subs.
10 gifted subs, okay?
Here, I'll sit to you. Honestly, I don't feel comfortable sitting too close to you. I'm gonna sit across the table.
Well, it's heads up, and I wouldn't want to sit next to you either, so let's work both. Let's go ahead.
There you go.
You seem like the kind of person that would look at my cards to get the opportunity to.
You seem like the kind of person who would sloppily show everybody his cards and be like, you looked.
What? Okay. All right. Okay. Hold on.
So how many chips do we have total here?
Well. Wait. Oh no, wait. More than 1,000. I'm sorry. I thought you only had 10.
No, okay, I have 990. Okay.
Yeah. So you got 10 in front of you, so yeah.
Look, you work at a casino. You're the poker pro here. Also, how are you gonna deal with stream sniping?
Well, I'm gonna hide my cards because I definitely don't trust you. So there you go.
Oh, so you're actually hiding your cards?
Okay, I think you have to because otherwise Stitches in chat will be spamming the whole time like, oh, he's got this, oh, he's got that, and then it's really hard not to look at your chat at all. So. Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. Shoot. All right.
Why do I have like the heart eyes? Is that for everybody? Okay.
Yeah, why do you have the hard eyes? Did you pick that?
No, no, stop.
Okay, there we go. Oh, you're really pushing me around here. You're just getting really good cards. Do you want to show them, or no? You're not. You're not here for the entertainment.
Good. Are you gonna play any hands, or are you just?
No, I'm just gonna
okay.
fold them.
You know, you have to like play eventually, right?
Wait, do you actually?
Yeah, at some point, like.
Ooh. Got it. Okay. All right, here, like this.
And another cool thing is she starts off on this footing of like, oh, I'm new to the game and whatever. And I feel like she's memeing. When she starts winning, spoiler alert, she wins the first 2 of these. Her personality changes completely. And so does Destiny's, which is the funny contrast between these two, is I feel like they're really similar in a lot of like weird, like low-key ways. Like, Destiny gets on the defensive too when he's losing a lot, and then he changes when he wins again. And so like, you know, seeing that like the rising and like seeding tide or whatever is like really, really fun to watch. I would recommend this video. I know it's really long, guys, and we're not going to review the whole thing on stream because again, I'm going to be making a video using clips from this and probably probably some other comedian podcasts too, like Bill Burr and stuff like that, in showing how you can do this. But man, it's a really cool video, and I just wanted to shout it out. If you guys haven't seen these two interact with each other and you're a Destiny fan, I highly recommend it. She is very, very intelligent. She's very, very quick, and I think these two are able to bounce off of each other in like a really cool way. And I really appreciate it compared to like, I don't know, it's different from other people that he talks to. Would you say it takes this kind of wit/charisma that makes a streamer grow in numbers? So there's what I'm going to call philosophical wit, which is something that I talked with Derry about. I don't think that's a real thing, but that's a term that I'm going to make up for describing it. So philosophical wit is the ability for your brain to like naturally make connections between things. So like when I'm talking right now, it's natural wit that's guiding me through everything. Maybe I have in my head like a few bullet points of things that I want to say, but all the words and the way they're being put together is by the wit. It's just they're being formed as they tumble out of my mouth. And I think wit also like gives you insights about things that you're reading, or gives you it's like the random thing. And I think wit is not something that you can improve super easily. I don't know. Like you can train it by increasing the intelligence that you have, but basically in my conversation with Derry, we separated wit and intelligence into two things. I can draw this. So if we have a bookshelf here, bloop, this is our bookshelf, right? And it has a bunch of books in it. Whatever, this is our bookshelf. Okay, and we have quite a few of them. And we'll call this our knowledge, right? Okay, so this is hard. Knowledge, okay? Books contain knowledge, and your knowledge is accessed by, or can be summarized with, your intelligence. If I misspell this, that's really embarrassing too. This is all, your intelligence is made up of your knowledge plus some like other right? Like there's knowledge, there's procedures, there's lists, there's a lot of stuff, but your intelligence is basically a lot of like systematic information and ways of processing things. Whereas like wit is this like magical substance that like produces like random stuff. Ooh. I don't know. Your wit like produces random stuff. Your wit like randomly takes books out of the knowledge, right? And it says, if you combine this and then this like extra special thing, then that's going to be a cool thing, right? Like if I'm on a test and I see a question and I read A, B, and C, the little thing that immediately tells me it's B is the wit, but the thing that goes like, oh, okay, well, if technically X is like this and then Y is like this and then we plug it through this, then obviously we arrive at the answer, which is B. Oh, okay. Doing it that way is using your intelligence and your knowledge in these systems that you understand to rote memorize and go through it. Whereas wit is the immediate answer your brain gives you in direct response to a question. I separate these two because personally in my brain, I recognize that there's a big difference between them. And like wit, what wit accesses for me, if we were to say wit and intelligence are like, we'll put a brain for intelligence, maybe. That's my brain. It's a very sad brain. Blip, blip, blip. Okay, so that's my brain. And then wit is this weird thing. I don't really know how to explain it. But what wit uses is imagination. What wit uses is like things that are beyond my control a lot of the time. or like it accesses a different space of my brain. I feel like imagination, like wit is when I picture items, the room that they show up in, like, or when you're trying to come up with clever ways of wording things, or when you're trying to like sort your, I don't know, like the imagination stuff. I wanted to say coming up with rhymes, but like for a rhyming word to something, I'll like close my eyes and I ask like, okay, like I will just repeat the word into the blackness of my brain, and I'm relying on my wit to come back to me with like the right space and knowledge to go to. So my wit might do some crazy with my imagination. Like it might be saying a bunch of words like wit, bit, chit, writ, whatever. Like it might be doing that, and that might be like a systemic thing that intelligence is doing. I don't know. But then it eventually landing on the word that I want is wit. Wit picks out the thing and it goes, that one, that's the one right there.
The other part, I always think of it as like this little super thin, invisible thread, but you can feel the tug, and you just you have to be really gentle, and you have to pause when agitated, and you have to go for it when you're going to, like, there's 4 walls in here, which one has the map behind it? It's that one. And you knock down the wall and it's there, you know?
Yeah, what is that though?
So anything that's not using processes or procedures, I feel like it's just like wit. We talked about this more on Derry's thing, and I feel like I fleshed it out better there. Is this making any sense, or am I crazy? Like, I think that wit is really hard. Philosophical wit, flagged. Lurking like a merkin. Oh, that worked better in my head. Captain Frantic. Hey, Larry, how are you? What the f***? Wit kind of works like that too a bit, though. Yeah. I thought I would tune in for a 5-head Booksmarts stream today. Doing good. Love Booksmarts. Thanks, Larry. Wit is more organic, I guess. Creative knowledge manipulation is like wit. Don't know what the I'm saying. No, that's what I'm trying to say too. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, it is. So yeah, creative knowledge manipulation is kind of like wit. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So when you're manipulating creative stuff, that can be your wit. Like, it's easier. I mean, wit looks a lot more like intelligence and whatever when you start actually using it for procedural stuff, like when you use it to draw, or when you're using it to like create stories or something. I feel like wit starts to look a lot more like intelligence in that it's like pattern forming. But the wit that I'm kind of trying to point out is like when I'm in my head, right, and I'm facing this way, right, so we're looking at the back of my head. When I'm here, basically, I shout out into the void something like blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then this is all black. We shoot it out in the void. And then sometimes the void will say something back. Right. And when it says something back, then we, that's what I'm talking about wit. Like, I don't know what it is. The same way that, like, sometimes I'll shout out something like an apple in a room, and then it paints the picture of the apple in a room, right? Like, it says, okay, this is what the apple in the room looks like, or whatever. That's such a bad apple. I can't draw because I have the stupid mouse. I don't know. Oh, man, why does it keep going vertical like this? So, like... And then it gives me that. But I'm saying the fetcher of this image is the wit. And like the speed of your wit and its ability to process through intelligence and information is like the ability to pull the right book without searching for it is what I'm talking about. Whereas like intelligence, we can rack our brain by using knowledge and like actively searching through this, right? So like, if someone asks me, for instance, like, hey, like, what happened in 1932, right? I go, oh, okay. So, like, if I want to figure that out and wit doesn't immediately give me the answer, I would start with the 30s and I would go, well, what happened to, like, from the 30s to maybe, like, the 40s, right? Well, we know, like, World War II is in here, right? I would hope that most of us know that like, World War II is going to be in here, right? And maybe depending on your country, you know, like the rates at which presidents were elected, right? Maybe you know a few election years that you can fit into here. Maybe you also remember that the 30s, this period somewhere around here, had the Great Depression, right? So you can start to frame and piece things together bit by bit. But this is a logical process. This is using that intelligent side of your brain. You're actively doing this in your brain. You're actively trying to sort through this. But you don't have your answer until your wit gives you an answer. So until you start to piece something together specific enough that you can point at 1932 right here and pick something out, until you get that, you have to go through this in an intelligent way. You have to use your knowledge and your processes of sorting through it to consciously do this. But when your subconscious shouts back at you an answer and it wasn't done through like a conscious process, I think that's what the wit is. And I feel like the wit is tougher to understand or to gauge. Like some people are witty and they're witty in conversation and stuff, but other people are witty in that they have immediate and crazy fast access to some sorts of knowledge, and they seem to be able to do that on a dime. A lot of the time it seems like it has to do with speed and like how creative your output is. Wit is more organic, I guess. Creative knowledge manipulation. Yeah. Cool. So like programming wit would be really hard. Yeah. Like wit, I don't know a systemic way of understanding wit, because I don't think the system of wit is available to us on the surface of like consciousness. Like I don't think being conscious we can understand wit. It doesn't seem accessible to us. Maybe we will by like looking at the brain long enough. At some point we'll be like, oh, okay, wit is actually like this bacteria that lives in your brain that like will randomly signal stuff, and like it you know works with neural passageways to like condition them or something. I don't know. Oh right, intuitive, like a quantum leap. Yeah, exactly, like quantum leap. That's a cool show, by the way, if nobody's seen Quantum Leap.
Theorizing that one could time travel within his own lifetime, Dr. Sam Beckett stepped into the Quantum Leap accelerator and vanished. He awoke to find himself trapped in the past, facing mirror images that were not his own, and driven by an unknown force to change history for the better. His only guide on this journey is Al, an observer from his own time, who appears in the form of a hologram that only Sam can see and hear. And so Dr. Beckett finds himself leaping from life to life, striving to put right what once went wrong, and hoping each time that his next leap will be the leap home.
But yeah, that's what I'm talking about there. Like you can take this intelligent approach and you can procedurally do this, and arrive at your answer. But I think the wit, the thing in the dark that shouts back the answer at you, is something different. Like I had this really crazy conversation with my sister about imagination, where we were talking about what that looks like for us. Like, where's the place that that's coming from? And I was telling her, it's like you have a different person living in your brain that doesn't talk, but they have their own kind of sense of imagination and creativity, and like the images that person creates are like different than the way that my day-to-day brain works. Like I can ask things of it, but at the end of the day, what it produces for me is like outside of my control, kind of. Like I wouldn't say it's me that creates like all of the sentences when I'm writing. I don't know if it's me that like creates the images in my head that I use to like do my explanations. Like the wit creates that, but I don't feel like this is like something I am connected to in a really significant way. I almost feel like this wit is an emergent property of intelligence and knowledge, that like once you have enough systems and processes and whatever, there's this a rising complexity of drawing connections between all that stuff. Or it could be that there's like a muscle in there that is the wit, that is like constantly trying to draw connections. And by constantly trying to draw connections actively through knowledge, you build up a muscle called wit that's able to respond like immediately to stuff at some point. That like through dedicated training here, you actually had like an intuitive sense of things here. Which I think could be the case, because like when I'm on a roll writing papers and I'm like doing that all the time and I'm constantly working over here, I feel like my wit improves significantly from that. And like because I'm engaging with so many different ideas and I'm in like form connections mode, I feel like that carries over and my wit starts working on like other stuff in my life. Like since I've been out of the office and stuff, I feel like my wit has been going way down, and that's because I don't have enough work and I'm not staying stimulated enough. Like, and that's why I've tried to be doing Twitch more. But yeah. Here's a crazy idea that I talked with somebody about in the abstract is I said, what if we have consciousness wrong? That actually what there is will. And that will is the action of something that we could call here consciousness. Consciousness. Okay? But will is the action that this thing takes. And consciousness is actually a way that information makes its way to this decider thing. And then I'm going to label this the decider. I think when we separate consciousness and we create like an entity that's utilizing the consciousness, then that kind of is an interesting way of approaching the problem. So if will, your active choices that you're able to make, let's give this even further context. So all of this is contained within the human, right? Human. There we go. Okay, so the human is a monkey. The human's like a little monkey, right? And it may be, and I want to like keep the whole point of this thought experiment was to consider, what if we are some kind of bacteria or something that's actually living in humans, right? And that actually what's going on is there's bacterial growth or something else inside of humans, some structure in humans that is actually making decisions and is consciously receiving information consciously that the human body is bringing in, right? So imagine that we had some creature that is dull like all the other animals in reality, right? But we are a bacteria or a virus that got into them, or a parasite of sorts that is able to hack into their system and get all that input info and then access into the brain and use it to like sort through information and stuff. So like if we, as we understand ourselves as the decider, as the person that's able to make decisions for the human, if we are in here and we're separate from the human itself, then we could kind of explain consciousness and will. That will is the commands that we give to the human body to like make it do stuff, and consciousness is actually us tapping into like the stream of input from the human and then trying to use their brain to process decisions. But like ultimately we're reliant on this human body to do all that stuff, but we exist independent of it. Like there could be human wills and quote unquote consciousness, whatever, kinds of organisms and other animals, right? I don't know. I'm not saying this is how things are. I'm not saying this is how I believe things are, but I thought it was like an interesting conversation that kind of relates to what you're talking about in a way. That it's interesting if we start by thinking that we are something independent from the human, and then we work from there, then it would seem that like consciousness is only like a means of processing information from the human. And if we consider these two the same thing, that like the decider is characterized by its conscious ability, then consciousness could just be like hijacking the human brain and reorganizing it so that you can use the body to make decisions. Like we could just be an infection of the brain, and that's actually what we are. And we've just like controlled a bunch of humans, and we're trying to exert will, but we're fighting against like a lot of like primitive things that are going on in the body, and that's why it's imperfect. That's why our control over like our own actions and stuff is imperfect, because at the end of the day, we're inhabiting a vessel that we're trying to fight against, and we're kind of like separate from it. And that was an interesting thing to consider. I'm going to check in with chat. This sounds crazy, I bet. So for me, consciousness is not causative. Not wanting to derail, just putting that out there. Totally willing to listen to materialistic mechanisms, though. Yeah, I don't know if this is materialistic, but the idea that like conceptually this is this thing is interesting. This basically describes my panpsychism. Quick, too long, didn't read. Panpsychism says that consciousness is a universal property like gravity, that basic and inbuilt. I could talk all day. Yeah. I mean, it could be. I mean, like, it could also be this, right? Like if we were to keep the decider thing, but we're talking about what you're talking about, let's say that this decider particle is actually like, let's pick a structure. Like, let's say that blood, right? We'll draw some veins here. Okay, let's say that blood is actually like an antenna, right? And that antenna actually picks up like signals, right? And that actually it's like the whole human Carter, whatever fucking blood system that's actually picking up signals, and that signal is actually the consciousness thing. So I've heard shit like this where like if we assume that like consciousness is actually like a property of everything and that we're all just like being pushed by it in some kind of way, like I've heard people talk about structures. The structures in humans that they've talked about has been like inside of a cell, right? You have your cell, you have some of your organelles. People have talked about what are they, like cytokinic or whatever, the web of like little tubules inside of the cell that actually like hold all the organelles in place. They're really, really small. They were talking about how like if consciousness is actually not in the cells but is all this stuff, then it would make sense how like when you zoom this out and you have like a bunch of cells working in tissue, right? And then you have like a tissue working as like an organ, and then you have like a human, that like the increasing complexity of this structure is actually like what is consciously controlling and like interpreting everything. I don't know. There's a lot of weird theories to this, but like I think in general everything surrounding consciousness and free will is not like super helpful because all of it's like shots in the dark. I think they're all like fun to think about though. Like they're fun to think about. It's just when people argue them with like belief, that's when I get cringed out, because it's like, well, hold on, bro, you gotta chill out because we actually don't know what the is going on. So don't get too heated because we don't really know. The Decider, George W. Bush. Here is my 3-head take before I have to leave. I have no concept of consciousness because there is no word for it in German. The closest would be awareness. If I can't talk about it, it's not real. So there is no such thing as consciousness. Bam. Easy. Slam dunk. Why do people happy? Dope. That was quite the ride, start to finish. I would have to go into my hypothesis that time. All of it past and future has already happened. Boom. All done in one timeless moment. So like I say, it would be the reams of text walls. When I was younger, I would get consciousness and conscious mixed up. Oh, conscientious? Or wait, conscience. Oh, conscience and conscious. Interesting. Ew, like that take. When we argue with belief behind them, I would tend to agree. If it ain't in German, it ain't real, folks. That's for damn sure. Just call it awareness, you motherfucker. Ain't no such thing as consciousness. There is no will in conscious. There is just the decider. This is what I call awareness. I think this is I don't know if everybody thinks like this either. I don't get to talk about this very often, but like when I tell kids in tutoring and stuff how to like why history is important, this is what I tell them, is because like there are several ways that you can conceptualize problems, right? Like what you're talking about, that there's this continuum called time, right? And that circle is where we're at on it. So there's this continuum called time, and it moves in simple increments in two directions. If you can create a timeline, right, then you've created an instrument through which you can understand and conceptualize anything related to time, which, if you think about it, is actually a lot of things. So if you don't have an accurate timeline with a basic idea of what happened at least the last few decades, if not like on into human like history, it may be hard for you to conceptualize and bring in ideas into a conversation. because you can't call bullshit on stuff if you don't know about timeline stuff. In much the same way that like you wouldn't be able to talk about historical context of things without like an understanding of what happened in the past. It's very hard to like criticize people like Elon Musk and stuff if you don't understand what's going on in the present and how that's going to move forward too. So having an understanding of history and a timeline in your head is really helpful, because it also gives you a way to sort and organize a lot of these books in your head. So like if you have all this knowledge, it's not helpful unless you have connections between all of it. Like what I like to talk about is how we have like a map, right? And this map corresponds to like reality or whatever. Some people draw mountains over here. Maybe some people will draw like a lake over here. Maybe there's some rivers that go over here to like, you know, an ocean that's over here. Right. And different people have different parts of this map filled out. If you've only ever lived in America and you've only been exposed to American ideas, you may not understand all of this stuff over here, right? And for some people, they think that their map is only so big and it's impossible for them to understand things that might be like over here, for instance, or they refuse that that exists at all, right? So I feel like maps are a helpful way of talking about things, because I think underneath the map, right, is actually like the surface of everything, because the map is just a representation of what actually exists. And what actually exists has these bumps on it and like crevices and like sharp parts and whatever, and we're just trying to map what that is. We don't really know what these things are because we're like feeling paper over them to try to understand them. And so when you're talking about feelings about things, that's like you're putting your hand on the map, right? And you're feeling what's underneath it. You're feeling something like this, and you're like, wait, no, like I'm having a response to that and I don't know why. Now, people will step in, and if that's like this area of the map right here, let's say, they might tell you, oh, okay, that's actually like a fish, right? It's actually a fish and its mouth looks like this, and you're just not feeling the tail of it. And you might be like, yeah, but like no matter what, when I feel the edges of it, it feels like it just smooths out, and then like all of this is actually just smooth, so it can't be a fish. So then you ignore the fish person because you felt around it and you didn't feel that, so it didn't seem like it made sense. Then somebody else told you, actually, that's like the arm of a crab, right? And that's what it is, and it goes down to a giant crab, and you're like, yeah, but when I feel around this, again, there's nothing there, right? And so you ignore that person too. But then somebody else tells you, you know, that's actually like, you know, two weird claws or something, right? And then instead of feeling all around it, which you have been doing this entire time, like instead of feeling this area to try and figure out what it was, now he's having you feel up here, right? And maybe when you feel up there, you actually learn that like, oh, there are these little like things here. Actually, now that I'm looking for that, now that I know what to look for, I'm actually picking those up. And this person didn't give you an idea for what it was. They said they were claws, whatever. They might not know what the but they paid attention and caught something that you missed. And so now on your map, you may not have an exact idea of what this is, but we can start to paint what we learned. So like there are definitely things there. It's all flat around the edges, but I'm not going to paint it flat forever because I only explored this part. And so now I have this. And then let's say I meet somebody and they end up telling me, oh, Noah, it's very simple what this is. What it actually is it is 2 islands and some itty bitty palm trees, right? And I go, oh, okay, that's interesting. Let me actually like, and if I'm able to get down there and I'm like, wait, that's totally what this is. They're like mini palm trees. Then I can draw that. And now I know what this is. And maybe he tells me like, and if you continue out this far, you'll hit the water and you'll hit the waves and stuff. And then I feel that far and I realize there's an ocean over here. Okay, awesome. And then I can go back to the people that told me there was a fish here. And maybe I talk to the fish guy and he's like, oh, well, I thought there was a fish there, right? This is my fish. I thought there was a fish there because I felt that there was water all around it, right? And, you know, when I felt it, it seemed like it went down forever. And so that's why I thought it was a fish. And it's like, oh, okay, no, actually it's like, it's actually like an island. And maybe if you go down far enough, it actually does level out, and maybe he goes and discovers that, whatever. But like, you also start to learn, once you get a closer idea of or approximation of the truth, you've unlocked other variants of what's around it so that you can communicate with people that maybe have ideas that are not on point. Like if this guy thinks it's a fish, then we may direct him to the little features that were on the top of this so that he can see that there are palm trees, and that might start to move his mind. But if he feels those palm trees and he's like, no, those are fish whiskers, then that can be frustrating for us, right? And we may have to approach it differently, right? We may want to push him all the way to the bottom of the ocean so he could see it continues, and therefore it can't be a fish. But you know, you learn different things. Like you learn, oh, okay, some people, because there's an ocean, seem to always assume that this is a fish. And they seem to always mix up fish and islands, right? For some reason, there's a lot of people that are saying that fish are islands, and that doesn't make any sense. So maybe you learn that people get these two things mixed up a lot. And if you realize that two people get these things mixed up a lot because you talked to a bunch of people and learned how everybody else is interpreting this, then you can start to go, oh, okay, like maybe either I need more points about the fish thing, or I could start to prepare arguments based on this. Like I'll go into conversations assuming that on other people's map here, they're going to have a drawing of a fish. And if they do, it's simply because there's water around it, and that's convincing them that it's a fish. And that islands tend to have spiky features because they have volcanoes. Ah, well, if they have volcanoes, then we may be able to point to different things to prove why this isn't a fish. Like, well, are fish really so rocky and hard, or are fish like generally like scaly and strange? And if we're not feeling any scales on it, what kind of fish is that? And like, if it's a fish, it should have gills. So if we follow this island down to the bottom, do we ever find any gills? No, it's just a bunch of sand and rock. So, you know, knowing how different people are interpreting and painting the pictures of their maps, and then slowly building out the most detailed image that you can to point to like what the most accurate truth is underneath the surface. That's all that we're trying to do. And then they said that those are palm trees. And when we felt more closely and we looked where they told us to, we figured out, oh yeah, actually at this dimension right here, there are palm trees, right? And it isn't until we have those dimensions, like that we know that like longitude, latitude, whatever, we go right here and we find the thing. It's not until people give us those coordinates that we're able to like see those things. And seeing those things helps us improve our map. And understanding why other people may have put something different in that place on the map, like why some people think islands are fishes, will help us with arguing with those people later. Because A, we used to believe that there was a fish there. B, we kept track of what changed our opinion about that. In this case, that's the palm trees. And C, we learned something new about why they're considering this a fish, is because there's water all around the island. And they felt down and it goes straight, so they think it's like a fish, instead of knowing that like eventually that curves out and it becomes a seafloor, right? And so we have to take in mind that from the fish people's perspective, what are the things that would change their mind over to the island perspective? What were the things that we learned about that convinced us this isn't a fish, this has to be an island, right? And then pointing to those things for them, or shaping our argument in a way where we reveal these things in an order that will be convincing to them, is what we should be doing with our rhetoric. That we can plan ahead for why people believe certain things, and that we can like adjust our explanation of editing the map accordingly, right? That's what we were talking about. I'm going to check in with chat. This has been quite the why is the camera shaking? Are you masturbating? Furiously, dude, these ideas, I'm getting off on these ideas. No, the table, remember when I moved my mouse, this table is so janky. So it's all jankily, so it's gonna, and then my laptop is, you know, so that's why we're shakety shaking. And if I'm drawing, then I'm moving the mouse and we're for sure going to be shaking. The reason why we can't have a consistent stream schedule is because I don't have a consistent housing situation. Right now we're in the garage, right? Not ideal. We're on this shaky setup on this desk. And so if I want to be consistent, I need a consistent place that I can go that's set up. So the idea is to move into a new place, which we can't do yet because I don't have enough Thanks for casting books. Okay. Remove your clothes and paint your body and roll around on the floor. Yeah, okay, that's one way we could do that for sure. And then we're trying to guess what I look like. Well, he's clearly fat. Look at the surface area of this thing. My God, it's a lot of body to map. Okay, shill time. So basically, I do writing, right? Boop, boop, boop. I do writing. I also do editing. I do tutoring, right? Maybe we have like a map. And I do, what else do I do? Writing, editing, tutoring. That's pretty much it. So if you enjoy these conversations or these breakdowns and you want to talk in private about something, or you need tutoring or writing assistance or editing, I'm available for all of those. That's really been the way that I've been saving money to get out of here. Like I said, we're getting a new van, so that's a lot of progress. But it's not going to be ideal because we still can't stream with that situation. Getting the van will mean preparing it so that I can save more money and live out of it while I move, and then moving to an area that is cheaper and apartment hunting while I make some more money. So that's going to be the plan. But, you know, it really is the work on here that's keeping this going. So I'm obviously going to make every effort to continue to do streaming. Like one thing I'm thinking is I could have the situation I had before COVID, which is I'm in the van and I have an office. Like I was kind of okay with that. Towards when COVID was starting, I was thinking that I wanted to get an apartment, which is why I put a bunch of money into marketing for my essay business. And then that all fell through because of COVID. But like I was wanting an apartment because I did want like to not have to shower at the gym every day, and to not have like all my dirty clothes at the same place that I sleep, and like, you know, stuff like that was getting to be troublesome. So, I mean, ideally I find a new place, but I'm okay with getting another office in a different state too, because that's the way that things are working out before, and that's fine. Like I only ever go to the van to sleep. Like the van is not a hangout spot. The van is not like where I edit and do work. It has been lately so that I can get out of the house, but like, you know, realistically, the van is just a place to sleep. So we could always get an office, and then I'll have a setup and I'll be able to talk to you guys that way. So if the rental situation in the next month is not looking good, I'll for sure just get an office, and then I'll talk to you guys that way, because I want to continue this. That's a big goal of mine. Do you do literary review? Very short sci-fi stories is my jam. Yeah, I do. Oh, that's another good thing to point out that I always forget. So I used to be a ghostwriter and editor for books. So with the editing stuff, I often wouldn't get credit. Same thing with the writing stuff. But I've written and edited a lot of books. So if you have a book and you want either a review on it, or you have a cool idea for a book and you want to do a proposal, that's all stuff that I've helped people write and work on as well. So if you need ghostwriting or book editing, stuff like that, I'm happy to. Also worth noting with the essays, I'm happy to do essays too. It doesn't need to be like formal writing. If you guys have a paper due for a class, like typically those start at around $20 a page and kind of go up from there, depending on how much research is involved, because research is the biggest part of it. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I work with people at the graduate level in the United States of America with several different majors. So if you're doing something like behavioral psychology, I can for sure help you. That's something I do a lot of. If you need business administration help at the master's and doctoral level, I'm more than capable of helping with those projects as well. Really anything psychology related or the humanities, I could probably help you with it. I've done a lot of work for education students, so people that are getting their master's in education. A lot of different programs. So you might be surprised with what I could help with. Let's see. Cool. Can we talk sometime? Yeah, for sure. I'll type it in the chat, but if you go to the Discord, I'm on there, and if you just DM me, we can work something out. Oh, if you guys don't know, we have a new emote now. We have that yellow flag. Geek made it for us. So Mr. Geek, the guy that we talked to before. So if you see something that's bad in a chat, then what you can do is like you can you could do something like racism, and you could like flag it.
Hey everybody, Booksmarts here in my garage, just finishing up the edit. Wanted to say thanks for all the likes, the comments, the DMs, all much appreciated. I still try to make it through every single one. Thanks to the community who supported me through this epidemic, through their subscriptions, the bits, the donations, and of course, the commissioned work. I ain't no lazy bum, all right? Just wanted to say, if you haven't subscribed already, maybe consider it. Maybe drop me on that bell button. Catch me on the next one. If you want to catch me live, the best way to do that would be to go on the Discord or follow on Twitch. Thanks so far. Hope to keep this up. Catch you on the flip side.